All right, hello class. The purpose of this video is to show you how to set up your GitHub repository and how to do your first uploads to that GitHub repository. This is going to be an important video for you. It's sort of a quick technical video, but one that is going to be how you will be turning in the majority of your work in this class for the coming semester. So get this one particularly good, get a sense of how it goes, so that when it comes to turning things in, you're not quite as stressed out about things and you know that the things that you've turned in have been turned in. The things that we're going, the two programs are going to be, well, we'll say three programs that we're going to be using to do this is GitHub, GitHub Desktop, and I hope I have GitHub Desktop on this computer, and Visual Studio Code. So we're going to start with GitHub. And I'm going to come over here to my thing. I'm going to go to GitHub, not .iu, even though that's there. I'm going to go ahead to github.com. And if you don't have an account, go ahead and sign up for an account here. So establish your username, your email address, your password. You have to apparently do some sort of fun rolling puzzle. I did this for Roblox recently, and it took me about 10 tries to do because I can't apparently figure out which way is up. Like this doesn't seem like up to me, but whatever. So you have to establish your GitHub account. For me, I'm going to go ahead and sign in because I already have one. Please try to make your username safe for work. At the end of the day, you're going to find that especially if you're moving into web development or you're moving into something that's coding oriented, you may be using your GitHub profile as a professional profile. So try to make something here that is professional looking. It might be a variation of your name, or at the very least something that isn't going to make you wince later on and be like, oh, this is a little bit childish of me to have things that I'm showing to my hiring committees now. So establish that. And then once you log in, yours might look a little bit different when you hop in here the first time, but that's fine. There's a couple of different ways to do this. I'm going to show you how to do this, creating your repo first here on the web and then pulling it down via GitHub Desktop. So we're going to come over here to repositories. We're going to hit new. And then for this class, you're going to call this N220. And since I'm reusing this, you might also do this as N320. N220 fall. So we're going to do fall 2020. And then you might want to put your name, but I think the N220 fall 2020 is fine because you have your username over there. Go ahead and keep this public. This is partially because I'm lazy. No one's really going to be taking a look at your repos anyway, so don't worry about that. But keep that public. Don't really need a description, nor do we need a get ignore for this particular project right now. But N220 fall 2020, and then click create repository. What this is going to do is it's going to create a place for your code to live on the internet for you. So it's going to create a place where you can upload this to essentially the cloud. If you've ever used Google Drive or Microsoft, what is Microsoft's one? Or Box or Dropbox, anything like that where you're uploading files, this is a very similar concept of it. It's a place for you to upload your files. We just have to go through a slightly different process to do it. So we've created now a repository, which is a place for us to upload files, but we need to now make some files on the desktop for us to upload to that. I'm going to go ahead and open up a program. We're going to be using GitHub Desktop for this. So this was in the set of things that you need to. Tornado sounds exciting. Ooh, asynchronous networking. I think I played with that before. I'm trying to find where to get GitHub Desktop though. Your projects. Like if I go to GitHub, they don't show me. I'm going to Google GitHub Desktop real fast. There are other programs like this out there that also could work really well for you. So download, install this. There's one for Mac, there's one for Windows. If you're on Linux, you're gonna have to figure out how to do it yourself. Sorry. But download and install GitHub Desktop. The reason why I used GitHub Desktop is I find it's really easy for beginners. There's more advanced ways of doing this that you might be familiar with, but for a beginner, this tends to work out. So I'm going to open up my GitHub Desktop. And I'm going to do that by hitting Windows and just searching for GitHub. On Mac, you can hit, I think it's like Command space or the Apple space, and you get your search and then search for GitHub Desktop as well. So over here, if you don't have anything established, you'll have a little button to search for, or we can go to File, Clone Repository, and then you can go wait for it to load your repositories here. So I actually have a series of repositories already, and one of them will be N220 Fall 2020. So I'm going to choose that one, and then I want to choose where I want to clone this to. So I don't want it to clone to Desktop Projects SSJ turn-based. So I'm going to click Choose, and because I'm this type of person, I'm just going to clutter at my desktop. So I'm going to select Folder. What's going to happen here is that's going to, you probably want to, by the way, put this where you put all your coursework. So actually, let me go ahead and choose. We'll do, how about school, right? Like we'll do school. You might have a school folder. So I'm going to put this in the school. And so it's going to create a new folder inside of there called N220 Fall 2020. That folder is the folder where you're going to do all of your work for this class. So let's go ahead and click clone. It's going to clone for a second. Awesome. And then let's go find that folder. So I'm going to open up my thingamabob here. I'm going to go find my school folder, which I believe is on the desktop. So I'm going to go to the desktop. I'm going to open up school, and there is N220 Fall 2020. Now, right now, there's nothing inside of that folder, so let's make something inside of that folder. I'm actually going to hop back one folder here. So I'm going to hop back to N220 Fall 2020, and I'm going to open up the final program that we're using in this class, which is Visual Studio Code. To do this, I typically just type the Windows key and I type in code, and that will pop up Visual Studio Code for me. If not, you'll have to type in a little bit more, and now I've launched 2 of them, which I don't really need. Let me get rid of some of these things. I have no idea what I'm working on here currently. There's a gulp file and a player.js and all sorts of cool things. A carousel? I couldn't tell you what I'm working on. Doesn't really matter. So I'm going to have this window open here for Visual Studio Code. I'm going to have this folder here that I just pulled down from Git selected. And I'm going to drag and drop this folder onto Visual Studio Code. You'll note that the Visual Studio Code kind of flashes for a second, and then everything here on the right-hand side looks different. You'll see that this folder right there has the same name as that folder there, because it's the exact same folder. Let me go ahead and open up this folder over here and show you what happens as I begin to work inside of here. So a quick introduction to Visual Studio Code. Over here is our project folder. So this is a representation of all the files that are inside of our desktop. We can either hit these little icons here like new file, new folder, or we can right click anywhere in this light gray area to select new file, new folder. I tend to right click more often than I hit these buttons up here. So I'm going to right click. In this one you do need to follow along with. We're going to make a new file and we're going to name it index.html. And I know that this isn't an HTML class, but we're going to have to learn the basics of HTML, like the bare bones of HTML to get here. It's not hard. Here's what I need you to type. We're going to type HTML, and we're going to get that closed HTML. We're going to type body. We're going to get that closed body. And then we're going to type a few more things inside of here. If this is overwhelming to you, and I think that this isn't overwhelming to anyone to do an HTML and a body, but if it is, you can also hit exclamation mark as your first entry and then enter, and you will get all your boilerplate. This winds up actually putting all the stuff you need in there for a real true HTML document, but I try to make things simple for you as a beginner. So I'm going to stick with the simple one, which is just HTML body with a return. If I could type body right. And now inside of here, we're going to go ahead and type in a few more things. We're going to type your name, so Travis Foz. And then we're going to do N220 examples, or N220 projects, fall 2020, something like that. Now this looks really good in the way that I formatted it, but it's actually not going to look great as HTML. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like as HTML. I'm going to right click here. Actually, I'm not going to right click. I'm going to go ahead and launch this in my web browser. So I'm going to drag and drop it into Chrome here. And even though I have, written this out as Travis Foz N220 Projects Fall 2020, over here, that's not what it looks like, right? Like it's all on the same line. So typically what we would do is we would wrap these in containers. We're going to do an H1 for this first one. And maybe we'll do paragraphs for the others. So paragraph and closed paragraph for each of those. Those of you who have been introduced to HTML, none of this is really new to you. Those of you that are in media arts and science or our informatics classes right now, you're gonna get hit with this in other classes pretty soon. Now, I want to point out something that I just did there, and I did it sort of automatically without thinking. I made an edit to this document and I saved it. You didn't see me go to File, Save. Instead, I hit Control S. This is going to be one of your key pieces of working here is hitting Control S. In the future, I'm going to show you a couple plugins that will automatically save for you, but to begin with, we're most likely going to be hitting Control S quite often because I'm sort of old school that way, I suppose. Hit Control S, and then I came over to this document to refresh it to see my changes. So let's say I come in here and I change this to Fall 2000, back when I was still in high school, going into high school, something like that. But Fall 2000. If I were to not save this and come over to this document and refresh, I won't see the 2000 because this change is unsaved. I need to save this first, so I'm going to Control S. You'll see that when I hit Control S, the white dot up there turns from a dot to an X. So let's do 2001, A Space Odyssey. It's a dot right now, which means it's unchanged. I'll hit Control S to save, and now I know that's saved to the document. Super important. Get in the habit of saving your stuff all the time. If you see a white dot up there, save it automatically. Now, I've changed this to Fall 2001 here, but over on this page, because I haven't refreshed it yet, it still says Fall 2020. So let's refresh there. And now it says Fall 2001. So getting in the habit of saving and refreshing, super important to see your changes. That is the first cycle you should be getting in the habit of. So we've got Fall 2020 there. Great. 2020 there. That would be 2020. Something would be quite a magnificent future. I'm sure it'd be living in HTML would be deprecated by then. So that's exciting. Now what we want to do is we want to get this off of this particular computer and up onto the web so that, I don't know, someone steals my computer gets fried, whatever it is, the code isn't just living on my computer. It's up there in the cloud. I don't have to worry about losing it, right? Always good to have that peace of mind, in addition to other things that Git gives us, which we'll see in a second. Let's go ahead and do that. We're going to be using GitHub Desktop for this. So when you want to upload this document, both to turn in for this class, but also to save it and get it off of your computer, you're going to push it from your computer up to the web. This is actually a two-step process. So step one, you need to commit it to your list of changes that you've made on your computer first. So I have this change. I've added this file called index.html. You need to tell it what it was, which in this case it's already sort of filled in. We'll say like first commit. Maybe something like that. And then you don't have to do a description necessarily, but you do have to give sort of a title. What did you do for this? And then you click commit to master. What that does is it commits it to the local list of changes. Like what's changed on this computer that's different than when you started working today. It hasn't put it up onto the web yet. So to put it up onto the web, we have to click this third button here that says Publish Branch. It will change in a second also. It'll be something a little bit different once we've done the first one. So I'm going to click Publish Branch, and it's going to say pushing to a revision, do all that fun stuff. And then when we come over here, you'll note that right now, this was the repo that I made at the very beginning. And it's telling me like, hey, how do you set this up? How do you get your first pieces of the puzzle in there? Now that I've published a branch though, and I've pushed a commit out there, if I refresh this page and I say, hey, tell me what things are at this moment right now, it's going to look a little bit different. It's going to show me a list of what I've created for this, and it's also going to show me the HTML I've made. So let's go through another change commit cycle. I'm gonna come back here, I don't know, maybe I'm being cheeky and I'm gonna do projects with a Z. I'm gonna go there and change that from N220 projects to project with a Z. And I'm gonna save. I might come over to my web version of it and refresh to make sure that it looks the way I want it to, great. And then I'm gonna come to my GitHub desktop. You'll see in GitHub desktop, there is now a thing that says there's one change file. What did I do? I said change projects to projects with a Z. And I'm gonna commit that to master. So now I've saved that to my local. Now we want to push that up to GitHub desktop or to my GitHub, because if I come back to this page and refresh on GitHub, I still don't see that Z. I haven't moved that change from my computer up to the web. To do that, it's that third button again, push origin. When you want to turn something in for this class, you push origin. So push origin, does some fun stuff. And now it's up there. If I come back and refresh, I've got that project with a Z. Great. That's part one. We've learned how to make an HTML document. We've learned how to push it up to the web, how to make a change, and how to push that change up to the web. And getting up to the web is a two-step process of committing to master and then pushing to origin. Part two, how do I make this so I can actually see these files? Or I can see this as a web page rather than just some code here, because I would rather see your interactive stuff because that's what I'm teaching in this class. Let's go to settings. And at this point, I'm going to cross my fingers and hope I remember how to do this. So we're going to, on your repo, we're going to go to settings. We're going to scroll down until we find GitHub pages. We're going to go where it says source. We're going to say master, which isn't always what we want. And we don't want to choose a theme. We're just going to do branch master and click save. Awesome. So now we have turned this into something that's serving up web pages for us in addition to storing our stuff on the web. It allows us to share this with other people in an interactive form, because I want to show people this page that I've made, not just the source code that I've made for it. Once we've made this, once we've updated that settings to under GitHub pages to say we're going to be publishing off of branch master from root, let's go ahead. We're going to copy this URL here. So I'm going to copy all of github.com/meanderingly/n220fall2020. And this is definitely where I'm going to start making it up. So cross your fingers with me. I forgot to practice this before we began. I'm going to take the meandering leaf. I'm going to take my username and I'm going to paste it before GitHub. And then I'm going to remove the meandering leaf here. And I'm going to change that .com to .io. And we're going to navigate to that version of it. So if I were to pull up the two different versions of this, let's go back to my root N220. This is what your GitHub version of it looks like by default, right? github.com/meanderingleaf/n220fall2020. This isn't serving my pages. This is showing the source code. Super helpful for a programmer, super helpful for me when I'm going to go through and check through your code, but not what you want to turn into something when you want it to look like a user-facing site. Instead, you want to send them to github.io. And to do that, you do your username first, .github.io / the name of your repo. So the username comes before GitHub, the .com becomes in .io, and then the / of your repo comes there. And there is my N220 projects with a Z. Okay, project with a Z, kind of dumb. Let's fix that. We'll put that back to projects with an S. And let's do the last piece of the puzzle here. I want you actually, in this course, to be doing all of your work in subfolders. So let's make those subfolders here and then we can finish that off for today. So we're gonna do a new folder. We're gonna call this labs. We're gonna do a new folder instead of labs, and this is where I need you to be very careful. I have taught many of you before. I may be teaching it online, so I'm trying to catch the stuff before it happens in lab. Click on labs. You have to be directly on labs. So right click on labs and say new folder. And we're going to call this lab 1. And then right click on lab 1 and say new file. We'll call this index.html. So we're going to be making a lot of indexes in this class because they're kind of typical. In this case, I'm just going to do the exclamation mark enter, and we're going to save. And in fact, I'm just going to put a to-do insert lab1 here because we're going to do lab1 in another video. I just want to get you started on GitHub early so that we can run into the issues that inevitably we'll run into. So to-do insert lab1 here. Great. Last piece of the puzzle. We're going to come back to index.html, and we're going to do a bit of markup. So we're going to do an h2 lab1, and then beneath there, let's do a paragraph. And inside of there, we're going to do an ahref, and we're going to link to the first one. So first example. This is definitely a just copy and move along. Don't panic about it. It will work. And if it doesn't work, we will work together to get it into a working state. That's my job, right? I help you fix many of your technical issues, especially when we're starting off. So this is an anchor. If you've ever clicked on a link while navigating the web, that's what it is behind the scenes. We want this link to that file there, which means we need to specify that it's going to be in the labs folder, in the lab1 folder, and we're going to the index.html inside of it. So we want to be inside the labs folder. And when we're saying here in computerese and computer code, we're going to go into lab1 folder, we do a //lab1, and then say navigate inside of that, we do index.html. All right, so now we're saying look inside the labs folder, look inside the lab1 folder, go to the index.html. Let's save that. I'm going to come back to my not github.io version. I want to look for this version again. I'm going to refresh, and we'll see there's a link there to the first example, and it says to do insert lab1. Awesome. So now I have this front page. As you go through this semester, I'm expecting you to keep this front page updated. So you'll also do a lab 2. And we will have, I think, up to 14 labs, something like that. So you don't have to have it all running right away, but as we go along, we will have a lab 2, a lab 3, a lab 4, and some of yours might have multiple paragraphs beneath them with links. Or whatever your markup is, as long as it's usable, I'm not going to get panicked about it. So we have this front page, and we have this front page linking to your individual examples inside the labs. Let's go ahead and get this last piece of the puzzle uploaded. So we're going to go back to GitHub Desktop. You'll note that we have 2 new files. We'll say updating, or like adding lab 1. We're going to commit that to master. So now we have sort of a note that we've added lab 1 on our computer, and then we're going to push to a regin to add that note to the piece on the web. With the push to origin, if I come back to my github.io and refresh, you'll see sometimes this takes a second. Or it just never. We will see on github.com, this is your first way of checking, on github.com that this is working. github.io might just be lagging a second. So when we come back to github.io, you'll see that here are our labs. I think that I was using github.io. Yeah, I must have been teaching with this before because you can see that I've increased the font size. So here's github.io, and I go there, and my to-do insert lab 1 here is also there. So this is how we're going to be turning in your project for the semester. You're going to be turning in a link to this particular one. Most likely you're going to have an assignment that says turn in this link and show me that you've gone through this work so that I can easily sort of grade in the future. And working with Git is sort of a crucial skill that employers ask for all the time. So this is your first baby steps into Git, and it gets more fun later on. All right, hope that you have made it through with only the minimum amount of pain, and enjoy, I suppose.